most important, Luca, most important. You are giving a gift. You are giving a presentation. You have to read the people in front of you.
People are afraid of being on camera. People are afraid of doing presentations. It feels like people are afraid to speak.
There's the 5 senses, and there's also the question words. How, why, who, which, when, where, and what. But when you've got 20 people in front of you, it is impossible to say hello and shake hands with every person, but you can. Look at them and see them.
Like you're juggling so many balls.
Yes.
And on top of that, you have to then adjust to that. So it's just like so much.
Because I ask open questions to the group as a whole, as a way of connecting. But as you said, it's the detail that makes the difference. So that's using physicality, history, and touching on something that's relevant to now and putting them into one.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we've got a very special person. Her name is Jess. She's a guide here in Bath, and I've been on a couple of her tours. And what I absolutely love about her is the fact that every time I'm on those tours, the way she tells the stories, it's absolutely incredible. She always pulls the people in the story, and it always captivates you. So even if you're bored, the way she tells it is just exciting. It makes you interested in the story. Jess, thank you for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me, Luca.
How's your day been?
Yeah, long. I did a tour this morning, drove home on my bike in the rain, got some bits and pieces done, and then got back on my bike and drove in to see you. So, and it's really dank November weather, but hey, it's nice to be here.
So, given this whole episode is going to be about storytelling
Yes.
and how you do that, just start out of curiosity because today has been, did it rain in the morning?
3/4 of the way through the tour, it started to rain.
So how do you, just talk to me about how that works, storytelling in the rain sometimes, and then we can go over how storytelling normally works with you when there's no weather like this.
Okay, so when I have to say, I did a tour in thunderous rain a couple of months back. It was torrential, and the worst thing was to be heard because we had all our umbrellas up, and in a way an umbrella is good because it contains the sound, but I was combating the intense and constant, it wasn't just a patter, it was a thud, heavy thuds of raindrops exploding onto my umbrella. But you just have to project. You have to project and hope for the best. And people said they could hear me, and that was a good, but it was quite a battle. But when you guide, there's all sorts of interruptions. There are sirens, there's weather, there's people shouting, there's the occasional drunk. There's all sorts, there's always something, you know what I mean? It's the way it is.
When I think of stories and when I think of, because what you do is public speaking in a way. You do it outside, there's people around you, there's an audience in front of you. When I think of public speaking, I mostly think of sort of like closed spaces. So before we actually go into that sort of closed environment where everything's sort of controlled, you've got a tougher job out there as a guide.
Yeah, there's also the traffic, you know what I mean? Just everyday hubbub, shoppers, all that. And buskers.
And it's crazy. It's great. So just before we talk about the actual storytelling, how do you control those environments? Do you even control them?
I work with them, and I work with them by sharing the fact that I'm working with them, with whoever's in front of me. So, you know, if there's a bus that goes by and blocks a view, or there's a noise or something, I share my competition with that noise to explain to them. And I say to the people, can you hear me? Despite what's going on behind me, despite the craziness, can you hear me? So that they can see that I'm trying to reach towards them, even though it's not the easiest. So I don't know if it's about control, it's about working with.
How do you work with? Because I think when I think of, say, something like that, when you speak to an audience of people, sometimes someone might come up to you and say, when I do a presentation, I'm a bit stressed, or I'm a bit anxious, or I'm not thinking about those things that you are thinking. So when it comes to that, how do you stay calm and remember to like ask those questions of like, can you hear me? Because like even though they're like easy to ask questions or like easy to do things, you have to calm yourself in the moment and like sort of like take action and lead.
You have to read the people in front of you. I'm an intense reader.
How do you do that? How do you read people? How can I read people?
Your responses. So if you have a response to me, I read that response. If I have a group of people in front of me, I read their faces. And I can see if somebody's thinking, oh my word, this woman can talk. Or whether they're like, yeah, and you know, and you can tell. And the first few moments, it's a bit like a date. Okay, have you ever been on a date?
I've been on a date, yeah.
Okay. So you meet the person and you have to read them. You have to. If you meet somebody you've never seen before, you're like, the first few seconds, you know, people say the first impressions count, you know. And I do that with my people. They are going to spend the next 2 and a bit hours of their lives with me. I am going to spend the next 2 and a bit hours of my life pouring out my energy to please them. And so it's important on both sides. And they've paid for a product and they want a quality product and I want to give a quality product. So all these things are hanging in the balance in the first few minutes of a tour. And I read who's in front of me and I respond to the level of interest or guardedness that I see. And if somebody's guarded, I think, okay, I've got to work on that person and I've got to touch them. And I have various ways that I try and do that. Does that answer your question?
That's my question, but I do have a follow-up because because when I do a presentation, I'm a bit better at it now. I'm not only focused on the presentation. I try to like look around and maybe assess people's faces. But like for someone who's not as good as that, how can they remember to do that? Because in the midst of it, you forget. It's easy to forget.
For me, the life of my tour, the life sparks the moment I have connection with who's in front of me. Now, if you're giving a presentation, Luca, are you giving that presentation in front of people or are you giving that presentation to a screen or to a camera?
I'll give you a personal example here. So every 2 weeks, company I work for, we sort of all gather around and we present the work we've done.
Okay.
And part of that is, it includes obviously some sort of presentation, so PowerPoint or like some sort of like presentation you can see on the screen.
Yeah.
And the second part to it is obviously the talking, the explaining.
Yeah.
And I'll give you even more. When we're sat in the room, everyone sort of like sat down around the table and the screen is in front of us and the people don't go and present up front.
No.
They just present from where they are.
Ah.
I'll tell you something else. I'm the only one who stands up. Everyone else, which I find quite shocking.
Look, it's great that you stand up.
That's what I've been told as well.
That's lovely. Can I encourage you to keep doing that?
Please do. You know what I would love to? Next time I would love to just go in the front and be like, right, let's take it up a notch.
Yeah.
Because people don't do. And people are afraid, I see it, people are afraid of being on camera, people are afraid of doing presentations. It feels like people are afraid to speak.
Yeah. Luca.
Jess.
It's Christmas time soon, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Have you seen the Christmas market?
Don't talk to me about the Christmas market. Here's the thing. On Christmas Day, will you give any gifts?
Yeah.
Now what's another word for gift?
Oh, don't know. Love?
A present.
Yeah.
Now when you give a presentation, you are giving a gift. If you give a gift to somebody, you want to see if they like it, don't you? That's the reading. And when you do your presentation every month at the table, you are giving a presentation. It's a present. And so the energy and the fun and the pleasure is because you're giving something. Does that answer your question?
It does make me see it in a different light now. You say it out loud. Yeah, I never thought about it like that.
Oh, that's what you're doing. If somebody gives a presentation as a task, it's not a gift. It's a task. Do you understand what I mean? If somebody stands up and thinks, right, I've got bullet points, I've got 7 bullet points, I've got to get through these and then tick, I've ticked the box. That is not a presentation. Because it's not a present. And I expect that the truth is that the person who's doing that presentation isn't present in the sense of in the room fully.
Help me become more present. How do you become present in your tours? How do you connect with people? Because you said a couple of minutes ago, you said in order to read the people, you have to connect with them.
Because I'm giving a gift. And I know, when I say I know, maybe that's presumptuous, I reckon 80% of the time that people come on my tours and they're going to hear things that they don't yet know or haven't yet thought about. And that is exciting. It gives me the honour of giving something to them that they've never had. That's exciting. Do you know what I mean?
I think I see...
Where's my mic? Have I lost it? No,
it's over there.
Okay,
yeah.
okay. So the magic... Listen, Luca.
Let me listen. Let me...
Yeah.
Yeah.
The magic is in the pleasure. And the pleasure, I take pleasure in giving. Especially if I think that you're going to like what I'm going to give you. And I'm going to package it in such a way that it's appealing. So you want to discover and open the present. And when I guide, that's what I am doing. I'm giving you a present that I think is really quite cool. And I enjoy that. And I hope that even if I say things to people that they do already know, I hope that I can present it either in a new light or in a way that makes it sympathetic. So that, I mean that in the Italian sense, as in of simpatia, simpatica. If someone says, oh, you are simpatica, it means you are sympathetic in your personality. And so I want to give people the information as a gift, because that gives me pleasure, in a way that is sympathetic to them, even if they already know it. So they won't think, oh yeah, I know all this. They think, oh, do you know, I knew that, but that's another way of looking at it. Oh, I like the way that's... Do you see what I mean?
So you're saying, I think what you're saying is, in order to connect with them, in order to give them that gift, that presentation,
yes,
you have to be happy to do it.
Yes. Yes.
Part of it is you have to read the reactions.
Yes.
And you have to, I think the last bit I got from you was be excited for the end, that for the gift they will receive once they understand it.
Yes, and also I believe, regardless of myself and my character, I believe in the quality and the power of the stories I'm telling to carry my enthusiasm. I don't want to sell my enthusiasm. That's not what I want to do. It's a bit like if you're doing a production or if you're in a theatre show, there is a way in which an actor can try too hard and block the meaning. But there is also a way in which an actor can trust the language and the words that they are using to carry the meaning to another person. And I trust the quality of my information, and I trust the stories that I have to tell. So not only, I've not thought about this before, but not only am I delighted at offering you a gift, I am also at the same moment trusting in the quality of the material that I have to offer. Do you understand? So that's actually a 2-part process. One is to give, and the other is to trust the quality of the gift.
Talk to me about, because we've talked about, I think I sort of like understand some things about how you give the presentation.
Yeah.
Even though they are really small points, they're really, I haven't thought about them in that way, about being excited necessarily. And
because the moment you're excited, you stop putting things at a person and you share them with. There's a massive, massive difference between, I've got to do this thing, I've got to talk for this long, ugh, that's the task, because that actually blocks you spiritually, emotionally. It blocks. But if you say, I have something to give you, it's an offering, there's no block. Do you understand?
I understand. Let's look at the second thing.
Yep.
That's the packaging. In order to trust the quality, you have to trust the packaging. In order to trust the packaging, you have to have the story.
Yes.
Talk to me about, you can start anywhere from how you create these stories. Because, again, guide, for people who don't know this, you present history.
Yes, I do.
Talk to me about how you come up with the stories, how you try them out, how you maybe interact with the people, if you interact with the people in the audience. Well, I say audience, but people who are there with you on the tour. Everything and anything about that and creating the story.
Okay.
I'm giving you quite an open field here.
Yes,
I
you
know.
are. You are.
Let's see
and
where
I'm
we
like,
get to, and then we'll.
Word. Okay, Luca, you used the word for me. You used the word history, and you said, Jess, you guide and you tell history, and I said, yes, that's right. And I have a question for you. What does history mean to you?
Things that have happened in the past and they have been captured in books that people keep talking about.
Okay, are you interested in that?
I'm interested in some bits.
Ah.
And I'll tell you something. Haven't looked too much into it, but what has started to interest me in history,
Yes,
is the fact that, well, if history repeats itself, if history repeats itself, and you can kind of see, well, this is what has been happening for the past 10, 20 years. This is where we are now. If this has happened before, how did it end?
Look, it's a fantastic, fantastic point. The other thing to mention is that history never repeats the same way twice. There are hallmarks, there are patterns, there are reflections, but it's never exactly the same. And that is part of the mystique of history, is how to learn from the past. So you can draw themes, you can draw comparisons, you can gain light and understanding, but it's not a foolproof, rigid, repeatable, this happened, that happened, that happened, so it will always be da-da-da-da-da-da. Because time moves, people and societies change, and you would have to recapture an entire moment and freeze it in time and then make yours exactly the same, which you can't. But what you say is passionately, what you say is one of the great motivations that people have to learn and to study. Because history is a fantastic mirror, and it can enlarge, and it's a bit like walking through a hall of mirrors, you know. You get distortions and different lights, but it's always history. It's magical. So that's what it means to you. So some people will be on my tour and they'll have that. They'll have the idea, we'd like to learn, I'd like to draw comparisons. Other people might just be like, history, I'm only here because, you know, my wife wants to do this cultural thing. Or you might get a teenager who's come along because their parents think that they should know things about culture. And it's just like, you know, and they're just like, no, I don't want to be here. And you get all sorts on a tour. But there are things which I mean, ask any good film producer or TV company or any showbiz situation. There are themes which are very powerful and marvellous and inspiring that always work. If you've got characters, if you've got worldviews, ideologies, different, every era has its own sort of fads and phases and ideologies, and all these things are fascinating to draw on. And if you match that with buildings, you've got characters, you've got buildings, you've got street names, you've got paths, you've got colours, you've got the art, the different artistic movements of different ages. All these things are appealing. Do you understand what I mean? And they are the building blocks with which to make a good story, particularly characters. And I have different characters on my tours that I talk about that string the stops together so that it isn't, one stop is not a static planet. It connects to the next and connects to the next. And so you get flow, but that's not every guide does that, but that's something that I like to pursue, is the narrative that runs through a tour.
This is very interesting. Run me through one example.
Okay. When I do tours of Bath, I do tours of lots of places, but I talk about 4 characters, and I call them Team Bath, or the Fab 4, or the Core 4. And these 4 characters, they illuminate the different stops. And I say to people at the beginning of the tour, I say, I'm going to talk to you about a lot of things, and I'm going to take you through the story of 4 different men and how their lives and how their actions have impacted and created the Bath that is so beautiful that we see now. And so I match buildings and architectural styles with an individual character. Now, that individual character is not the whole story of the city of Bath, but it's a good starting point. It's a touchstone. It's a point of reference by which everything else can be measured and understood within the context of the story and the tour. Does that?
It makes sense. Yeah, what you're saying. What I'm hearing is you look at a history.
Yes.
That is around Bath.
Yes.
And you take, in this case, the 4 people who have, the 4 men who have shaped Bath.
Yes.
And then whenever you go to your specific spots,
yes,
you link that spot to the character.
Or a character, yes.
Or a character.
Yes.
And everything else in the rest. So that could be a building,
yeah.
Well, I said we're surrounded by loads of buildings here, so yeah.
And the other thing is to make the character in some way relatable.
How do you make it relatable?
Okay, so people come to Bath, all right, and it's elegant, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's des res for Britain. I mean, desirable.
What now?
Des res, desirable residence.
So, number 1 city in the UK.
Exactly. That's exactly the point. And so there is a sort of assumption that the founders, the movers and shakers in the past were elegant, well-heeled, successful, qualified, and that's not actually the truth. For example, Beau Nash, who is a complete legend when it comes to Bath, was the son of a bottle maker from Swansea. Immediately, he's not high-end, he's not elegant, he doesn't have urban sophistication and je ne sais quoi. He comes from a very gritty sort of background, you see what I mean? Working background. And yet, he's part of creating, as I say on my tours, turning Bath into the dating site for Britain, which is, and then that's relatable. This is relatable on 2 counts. It's relatable to people who've ever been on a date. Anyone who's ever signed up online to a dating site in the virtual sense, immediately this creates humour and comparison and, sort of the world of dating, which is a subject. And also the fact that he was a working man and his father scrimped and saved like mad to give his son a better life. and what happened and how did that work and what can we draw out of that. Do you know what I mean? And there's also the story of society, because Bath as a city, as we think of it now, particularly outside the old city walls, the old city limits, 23-acre Bath outside, it grew in the 1700s, and there were two great addictions of that age. You know, every age has its scourge, or plural, scourges. And there were two, particularly for the Georgian era: gin and gambling, G and G, as I say on my tours. And I talk about how Beau Nash himself was an enormous gambler, and the city of Bath was a city for gamblers before it was gentrified and made elegant. And even then, there was a lot of gambling going. Why did I tell you that? There was a reason.
Yeah, we're talking about how you make the stories relatable.
Yeah.
And you start from Beau
Yeah.
Nash.
And so when I talk about gin, obviously, or gin and gambling, gin now, the gin craze is like there's a resurrection. It's not quite the same, because the gin that was being drunk in the 1700s was lethal. People drank it by the pint. Yes, I don't know if this is quite right. I haven't talked about it for a long time, but not in this depth. But I think the average consumption of gin a week, whether you were 6 or 66, for example, was about 3 to 4 pints of gin a week.
That's crazy.
It's extraordinary. And it was flavoured with formaldehyde, which you use for preserving dead bodies. It's ghastly. They used to put all kinds of ghastly, and that's why so many members of the working and the lower classes were just, I mean, they were wretched. The consequence, you know, the impact of gin, they say, was very similar to the impact of crack cocaine in New York, in the 1980s. That the impact was as shocking, as real, as graphic. And so by drawing in these aspects of what was happening socially at the time, these things also become relatable. Do you see what I mean? You can connect with them where we are here and now. The whole banking culture that we think of now was pretty new in the 1700s. The Bank of England was founded as 1694. So you just tip then into the 1700s and you get the culture of lending, investing, spending, borrowing, and there is a gambling craze. And this, you don't understand. So talking about these things, people can relate, they can understand, they can see how those themes from our past are connected and do connect with our time now. So you get the story of the working man who tries to give his son a better life, who makes good by, being part of the creating of a total culture, the dating culture in Britain, in Bath, in the 1700s, along with the gin and the gambling. And all these are all threads that I use to draw people's interest out and to paint a picture of the time, and not just a picture, but to give a full impression of the time. Are you bored yet?
I'm hearing characters, I'm
Yes.
hearing buildings,
Yes.
I'm hearing relatability
Yes.
in your stories.
Yes.
And how you create them. Is there anything else?
Yeah, social threads, social currents that are running through the time.
Okay.
There was something else I was going to say then. What was I going to... I had something. It might come back to me.
I'll tell you what.
I remembered.
Oh, perfect.
Can I tell you?
Please do.
For example,
Yes.
we go through a place called Gravel Walk. It's beautiful. When I say it's beautiful, it's a lovely little secluded walk, and it leads up to the beauty of the Royal Crescent, which is just stunning. Whether you've seen it once or a gazillion times, it's stunning. And on the way towards, I talk about little gaps that used to be in the walls of the ends of the gardens, right? And these gaps, each gap, held a bucket. 2 or 3 times a day, every day, serving staff would come from the lovely houses out of the back door of the house, through the garden to the door in the wall, come out carrying a chamber pot. And they tip the contents of the chamber pot into a bucket that then goes into the niche in the wall. And the night soil men come 2 or 3 times a week in the middle of the night, and they empty all those buckets, the contents, into a cart. The cart is taken outside city limits where it's dumped the contents into an enormous pit. And that was the history of how people managed before flushing toilets. And suddenly you have a whole new impression of the time. Do you understand? And it's visceral. You can almost smell it. And it stops you thinking Bath is this incredibly sanitized, the air is purer than pure. Wasn't like that. But it's another way to touch people with something that every single person can think, oh my word, how ghastly. Do you know what I mean? Smells, touch, taste, colour, characters, buildings, social themes, addictions, fads, crazes, phases, fashion, all these things come as wars, battles, soldiers, lovers. The lady who is left while her beloved goes off to battle. All these things are woven into my tours. Have I said too much?
I think the thing that you've just said has sort of made me realize that one of the things I really like about you is how you describe in such great detail. You create that smell, you create that visual image in your head.
Yes.
And you can almost obviously hear the stories.
Yes.
Like you were there.
Yes. Yes. And then the characters that I have talked to you about suddenly have a home. They belong somewhere. They belong in this milieu, in this purple haze of an atmosphere that I've tried to paint, that I've tried to draw out and conjure, so that you have a bird's eye view into a certain age, into a certain time, into the why, not just the how, but the why of people's lives and how they were. The reason for this is that. The reason, do you see what I mean? There's the 5 senses. And there's also the question words. How, why, who, which, when, where, and what. And I want to try and match those questions that people may have about a city with the 5 senses, to try and engage them so that they can feel it. This is about empathy.
That's a really good point. I'm going to take this from you and I'm going to try it out in my...
Yeah. But it only works if people understand that you genuinely are offering them a gift.
And the quality.
Yes. And I have to trust the quality of my information and the power of a good story. And if I can trust that, the whole thing flows, because I'm not trying. It's possible to get in a rut and just try. But the stories are great. They're easy to share. And so, and I try also to talk to, especially men, because men get a bit sceptical about, history sometimes. So then I try to connect with the men, particularly through fashion. Because fashion in the 1700s for men completely changed.
I mean, when Jane Austen
in
Fashion Week happens in Bath for days on end, you can see.
And when I talk about fashion, I would love to talk about ladies' fashion, but there isn't time. So I go for the guys and I talk to the men about what they are wearing now. And I say to them, you are part of the fashion revolution that happened in the 1760s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and into the 1800s. And they're going, oh, what, me in my jeans? And I'm like, yes, you in your jeans. And I get them interested.
How else do you interact with the people on your tour?
I look at them. That's the first thing. It's very important that a guide looks at their group, because if somebody doesn't keep up, or if somebody has a problem, you need to clock it quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not possible I wish it was. When you have a small group, 3 or 4 people, you can all shake hands. And then you have a connection with eye contact and you shake hands. And you can easily see how many people you have and you interact on a personal level. It's a bit more like family. But when you've got 20 people in front of you, it is impossible to say hello and shake hands with every person. But you can look at them and see them. And it's important. I need to see my group because I can't tell if they can hear me unless I can see
Do you
them.
speak with them?
Yeah.
If there's a group of 20 people,
Yeah.
tell me about that.
So I've got 20 people in front of me. So the first stop, I can't interact with individuals. Oh no, that's not even true. I do interact with individuals because when I start to talk about the Georgian era, I say to people, do you know how many King Georges we've had? Does anybody know? And somebody might say, 6. And I'm like, yes, we've had 6. And at that moment, I have a moment of interaction with that one person, but in a totally public way. You understand what I mean? Or in somebody else, I might ask another question and somebody else might pipe up because I ask open questions to the group as a whole, as a way of connecting.
You ask open questions of the group as a whole.
Yes.
Oh,
And I also say to them, if you don't know the answer, this is not a test. If you don't know the answer, you give me reason to live. Because my job is to share things with you and I want to share, but I want to understand how to share and to gauge what you know and what you don't know so that I know how to speak in a relevant way. So I say that to them so that they're not, this isn't school.
Something very interesting there. Because okay, so on one hand, you've got the presentation you want to give.
Yes.
And then on the other hand, you said you've got to trust the quality that they will receive.
Yes.
And trusting the quality, to me, comes from, in this case, knowing the history.
Yeah.
And sort of like knowing what happened, and the time and the age, the times, and everything in between. So it comes from having that confidence in your knowledge. But knowing that and then looking around, how do you then adjust the story to the level of to their level of understanding? Because that's dynamic, that's spontaneous.
Yes, it is.
You don't know how much I know.
No, and that is why every tour for a guide is different. There is standard patter, but as you said, it's the detail that makes the difference. And on my tours, I choose my details.
Do you choose them in the moment?
Yes.
How do you do that?
Because
because in my head, you have to juggle eye contact, you have to juggle the spots where you're going to,
yes,
the characters you're going to talk about, the buildings, the social themes of the era, the what was happening, making the story relatable. Bonash,
yeah,
how can we make him relatable? Well,
yeah.
these are the facts about him.
Yeah.
Let's try and introduce this to make it relatable. You have to you're juggling so many balls.
Yes.
And on top of that, you have to then adjust to that. So it's just like so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the fun.
That's the fun.
The spontaneity of a tour comes when you get that rapport with who's in front of you. And in order to get that, I have to judge what are they going to be interested in. What are these guys? What's going to tick their talk? That's what I do. I think, well, how can I tick your talk?
Yeah, talk to me about that because I feel like I haven't fully understood how you do that.
Okay, here's a really basic, simple. It's almost irritatingly obvious, but I'm just going to put it out there. Okay, if I've got on a tour with me 4 or 5 Americans, it happens a lot, and they are between 60 and 75, I think to myself, I'm going to do a stop on World War II. I'm going to reference the Battle of the Bulge. I'm going to weave in a bit of Winston. I'm going to put in a couple of quotes. I might add a bit of war poetry because I know it will tick their talk. I know that. I just know. If I've got people from France, I might not talk so much about the Napoleonic Wars. I might not. I might. It depends on their... You understand what I mean? If I've got children on my tour, we go for the toilet stuff, you know, because they're like, ugh, and that's really fun. And I do fashion always, if I can. If there's time, I would, because fashion is good for everybody. It's just good for everybody. And if I've got kids, oh yeah, I can also reference films and different productions that they may have seen. Okay. Yeah. And what's really fun to do with children is to count pediments and pillars and counting things. And I also, on my tours, when I'm comparing France and England, because usually this happens in Abbey Churchyard, and in Abbey Churchyard, the paving stones are not evenly spaced or sized. They're all different. So if I'm talking about France, I say, here's a big square, and I stand in a big square because France is big. And then I will contrast with England, and I'll say, and I'm going to talk about England, and England is little, so I'll stand in a really small square that's close by to illustrate. So I'm physicalizing meaning. Does that answer your question? I think I've answered the question.
I think you're sort of dancing
around
with the group.
Okay. Yeah, yes, I am. I really am.
To see what they like. If they're French, maybe not Napoleon. If they're American, maybe Winston, maybe a bit of the World War II.
Yes.
So you sort of like, obviously, you know
that's
because...
that's the relating point.
Yeah, that's the relating point.
Yeah.
To the age group.
Yes, and to the individual. If I've got... Today, I was quite intimidated, I must tell you. I had a group of 12 people who were interior designers and architects. And I was like, right, Jess, I didn't hardly touch Napoleon. I had a guy on the tour who was Portuguese. So I did stuff about trade and the early empire and the fact that we'd always traded with Portugal and port wine has always been a thing. And I talked about that, and I talked about the artist Goya and certain stuff about the Peninsular War because it was relevant, because I had a guy from Portugal on the tour. So it kind of worked. But I tried today to talk about architectural features. And it's not difficult in Bath, because Bath, the buildings are just stuffed with lovely architectural features that you can talk about. But I tried to draw it out, emphasise. I was like, okay, let's compare. And because much of Bath is built in the style of antiquity, Greece and Rome, so I was able to speak to them about parallels between the Parthenon and the design of, ancient architecture, and how it's mirrored and reflected in the way that certain buildings have been constructed in Bath, and all that jazz. So I tried to talk about things that would relate to them as architects and as interior designers too, because there are things and themes there that I could draw on from the time, which I did. So does that...
That's my question. I think one of the most important things that I I'm drawing out for myself here is everything you've said here is great, but you need to know so much in order to do that.
Yeah.
You have to, because otherwise, how are you gonna talk about so much architecture one day and then switch over to something else? You have to.
Yes.
You have to know.
Yes.
What you're talking about to then know your audience, to then dance together.
That's so lovely. Thank you, Luca, for the dancing. That's so nice. Yeah. So I've been a guide for a long time. And my early guiding life, there's a sort of line in the sand. My early guiding life, I wasn't qualified. I did it just because I loved it. I started on open top buses. I did that for a while. I was trained to do that, but the training is specific to buses, and there was a certain route and da-da. And then I started guiding. I did a short course. I started guiding on coaches, actually. And then I did a course, when I say short, it was a good year, called the Westminster course. And my mind began to open at that point to things beyond my natural easy habitation, which is characters and personalities. And, the Tudor era is stuffed with great characters, and it's gripping to get into, and the Stuarts the same, and, the medieval times. But then as I began to grow as a guide and I became qualified, my eyes and ears were opened to the quality of a street, because every street has its own quality, to the buildings that you see around you, to architecture, to art, to wars, to battles, and so in every way, my guiding sense just did that, just opened right up. And that's where the knowledge comes from. So on my tours, I can draw on what I learned as a guide when I studied to be a Blue Badge guide. I had to do a lot of study on art. And I never thought, particularly, I thought about theatre because that's, where my soul lives. But suddenly, the world of art opened up to me, and it opened, and I fell in. I felt literally as if I had been tipped into buckets of paint, and it was thrilling to me, and I fell in love with the National Gallery, and I fell in love with the Wallace collection, and I just got completely stoned on the wonder of art. I never thought about it, and so it finds its way into my tours. Do you understand? So as my guiding life has developed, as my training has developed, as my study has developed, so has the quality of my tours. And I hope that my tours are, wrapped in the five senses because of the training and the study that I've done. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. And as we're wrapping up, is there anything I should ask you about storytelling and about the essence you just talked about? Is there anything that I might have missed from this conversation? Is there anything that you think need to mention that?
So you're asking me, what was it that I didn't say? Wow. Perhaps I should ask you, Luca. You've seen me guide on a couple of stops in the street, that's it. What was it that you liked?
I think I like the fact that you were interacting with people.
Yes. Well, we've covered that.
We've covered that. You were interacting with people.
Oh, and also when I'm on a walking tour, between stops, I'm leading the group, but I'm close enough that I can speak to people who are near me. And we have the "where are you from" chats and "how long are you in Bath for?"
I didn't realize that.
Yes.
No.
And that's another way of building relationship. So it's not just the stops themselves, it's the journey from stop to stop. And that is unique opportunity, especially with children, for holding hands, for showing everybody the way, for getting kids to count the group to make sure that everybody's here. Have we got everybody? Will you be my helper? All that kind of stuff kicks in. And also relating with people, who are adults about where they've travelled from and all that. I forgot to say that. Sorry, carry on.
I think one that pops to mind is I remember, and you kind of I think touched upon it now. You said you're being very physical.
Yes.
And then you also said you're trying to draw a connection between the physicality of something.
Yes.
With something that's abstract. And I think the thing that pops in my mind is how you're throwing an axe.
Yes. So you remember, Luca, that I was standing outside Bath Abbey and I was talking about the Franks because one of the people who got a church building constructed on the site of Bath Abbey was a lady called Bertana. She was a Frank. And so, what is a Frank? Who are the Franks? And so then to explain about Eastern Francia and Western Francia, and I talk about how before they Christianized, which they did, they were very pagan and they were axe throwers. They were brilliant at throwing axes, and they would know how many times an axe would turn in the air in battle before it struck its victim. And it's an extraordinary thing, and they made an art form out of it. And axe throwing now is an art form. And this is another way that I try, if necessary, if I can, to touch people who think, oh, history, it's not for me, and it's all very sort of erudite. And then I talk about people throwing axes. And actually, because it's in my manner, because I'm demonstrative as a person, I make as if I am a Frank throwing an axe and watching it turn. And I know I've hit my enemy. And you saw me do that on a tour, and you remembered it because it's physical. And so I'm taking a fact that's lodged in ancient history, although axe throwing is a thing now. Lots of people do it. And that's another reason it's relatable. It's complete because people think, oh yeah, I've heard about this axe throwing. It's the thing. People, yeah, this is the root of it. You know what I mean? And so you saw and you remembered, and I hope and I trust that you learned because of that. So that's using physicality, history, and touching on something that's relevant to now and putting them into one. And I do it specifically to touch people or to reach people who think that history is not for them. So there's lots of ways to do that. I do that because I try to speak on my tours with lots of colour. So that, because the imagination catches these prompts, they're like triggers. So if I describe a character or a person or a situation, I try to add in dashes of colour, especially when I talk about fashion or the sedan chair, because they're all different colours, in order to give people a hook. They can catch it and think, oh yeah, and they remember, not because I'm in learning about culture mode. No. No. They learn because they have forgotten that they're learning about culture, and they are, I hope, enveloped into the beautiful details of the story that make the story live.
I understand. It's easier for them to relate to that physicality, to then understand the fact.
Because all of us are physical.
Yeah. So as we are wrapping up, give me just a quick rundown of everything you've said. And this is
Wow.
easier than this is gonna be
easier said than done.
So
okay.
What I want is, you've said loads of things, but we can distill them down into, say, characters, buildings, teams, social. So what was it again?
Characters. These are the threads. So you're thinking, when I next do a presentation, okay, that's your...
Sorry, that's actually my question.
Sì. Allora, okay. Most important, Luca, most important. You are giving a gift. You are giving a presentation. Here's a present. Now, this has got water in, so I've got to be careful. No. Yeah, no, that's fine. Here's a present. Now, Luca, if this is a gift, right, I'm not going to say, just have it. Just have it. No. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to look at you, and I'm going to offer this to you in such a way that you can receive it. There. You've received it, and there's connection. And that is the key. I can put this down. As soon as I've done that, there's magic. You've got to believe in your product and enjoy offering it. And if you do that, the connection will be there. That's the first thing. That's what I do. I stand in front of my people and I offer them a gift. And then how to make it enticing. How to make it so that they want to know, so that they're in. Okay, use colour, use smell, use fashion, bounce off the people in front of you to work out what you reckon they'd be interested in. And think, yeah, I'm going to go into that. Use art, use worldviews, use addictions, use fads, use crazes, use ideologies, use worldviews, use philosophers, use artists, use painters, use builders, and build characters so that people can follow from one place to the next, from one bullet point on your list to the next. Oh yeah, there's the connection. There's a theme they run through. Does that help you?
That helps me. Just thank you so much.
Well, Luca, if I've helped you, I'm happy.
Thank you. And final question. How should I title this episode?
I don't know. Presentations. Because you've got to be present in yourself and fully focused. And that means you're present. And a presentation is what you're giving. Presentation. No? Do you like that?
I like it. Jess,
I'm
thank you
happy.
so much.
Bless you, darling. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, pleasure.